America's sovereignty is under attack. Our southern border is overrun by cartels, criminal gangs, known terrorists, human traffickers, smugglers, unvetted military-age males from foreign adversaries, and illicit narcotics that harm Americans, including America. This was the statement Donald Trump wrote in his executive order on January 20th, 2025, in which he declared a national emergency at the southern border. Because of this executive order, the construction work at the border wall between Mexico and the U.S., which was stopped in 2021, has restarted again. Since 2016, Donald Trump has been trying to build this wall to stop the illegal immigrants, and now it's finally resuming.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
Shockingly, the immigrant problem in the U.S. has only been rising in the past few years, with millions of non-citizens coming into the country seeking asylum. A lot of people have been supporting the restarting of the construction of the border wall because of this. Taking this into consideration, President Donald Trump made this extreme decision with a lot of careful directions to the authorities to start rebuilding the wall. The primary aim of this wall has always been to keep illegal aliens who come to the U.S. from committing crimes and spreading danger around the country. The American people don't feel safe anymore, and that's why building this wall is imminent, at least in Donald Trump's opinion. However, tons of questions arise because of this executive order. Is the wall going to be completed now? Will any legal challenges stop this construction again? And most importantly, how effective is this wall going to be against the illegal migrants? All of this and more will be discussed today in this latest update video. On January 20th, 2025, the White House website uploaded the official executive order titled "Declaring a National Emergency at the Southern Border of the United States." This strong opening statement highlighted how serious the issue was and how a proper course of action was imminent. Joe Biden's presidency had tried its hand at controlling the borders, but Donald Trump's ambitions have been significantly higher against this problem since his last term in 2017 to 2021. Because of the executive order, the first course of action was resuming the construction of the border wall. This meant that the worst nightmare of smugglers, traffickers, and illegal migrants came true. Prior to this massive security border, often called the Trump Wall, had always been full of controversies, legal troubles, and public backlash. According to a poll conducted a couple of years ago, 50 to 51% of Americans were in favor of the wall, while the other 49 to 50% didn't share the same opinion as the Republicans. This was because a lot of people in the U.S. who have also become U.S. citizens through the legal process still have families on the other side of the border. A wall would mean stricter checks, difficult immigration processes, and a list of formalities for visitors who want to come to their families just to meet them. However, according to Border Patrol reports of the last few years, hundreds of thousands of illegal people have tried to cross the border by climbing the fence, digging tunnels, and many other illegal ways. These people pose a threat to American citizens because they have no legal records of coming into the country. Along with that, crime rates have also increased significantly since the wall construction was stopped by Joe Biden in 2021. Robberies, street crime, organized crime, drug trafficking, and even murders have been on the rise. A while ago, a gang of illegal Venezuelan immigrants was caught by the authorities committing various crimes, including theft, robberies, assault, and murder. Similarly, another gang was also caught who rode mopeds, committing various crimes on the streets of New York City. All of these factors showed how vital the border wall was, and that is why one of the first steps Donald Trump took as president was to restart its construction. Many Americans, primarily Republican voters who elected Donald Trump in November 2024, are showing wholehearted support for this decision. They believe that America has been filled with illegal immigrants for way too long, and it's about time someone did something to rebuild American society. Of course, for die-hard patriots, it's a matter of extreme concern when illegal immigrants come from their countries, cross the border without any documentation, and take employment here for lower salaries. It negatively affects the economy and the job market, and the overall impact on society is quite dangerous. That is why President Trump highlighted in his executive order that illegal aliens have been committing heinous crimes in the U.S. and putting all Americans, including women and children, at grave risk. For example, Donald Trump highlighted the case of a 12-year-old girl who was allegedly murdered by two Venezuelan men who entered the country illegally. Such cases, or at least allegations, became quite common between 2020 and 2024, and Donald Trump has used that as a political weapon against Joe Biden.
Joe Biden has officially abolished what remained of America's borders and turned the United States into a dumping ground for illegal aliens from all over the world.
Many say that if the wall had been built and Biden had not stopped its construction immediately after taking office, these crimes never would have taken place. Now that Donald Trump is the president again, the supporters of the U.S.-Mexico wall are fully backing the new executive order, demanding that the wall be constructed again as soon as possible. To the Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security to immediately take steps to put up additional physical barriers all across the southern border. These barriers can be temporary, such as shipping containers or permanent concrete walls and barbed wire fences. In simple terms, this means that the wall construction has started with full effect once again. On January 20th, 2021, Joe Biden terminated the emergency situation at the border and ordered a redirection of the funds for the border wall construction. Donald Trump instantly revoked this termination, stating that the Secretary of Defense shall submit a full report through the Homeland Security Advisor detailing all the steps necessary to take control of this situation. A couple of days later, the construction of the U.S.-Mexico border fence began from the east side of the Friendship Park between the two countries. According to the recently reported plans, all gaps between the San Diego border area will be closed under the supervision of border security officials. In March 2024, a court order put a halt on this construction despite the fact that it was nearly completed. In December 2024, shocking news made the headlines that Joe Biden was selling off the parts of the border wall before Donald Trump took office at the dawn of the new year. This news worried everyone since billions of dollars worth of material was bought to construct the border wall, and it was being auctioned off. Of course, this meant that Donald Trump's plan of immediately restarting the construction would be delayed significantly. But thankfully, there was more to this issue. According to Yahoo News, leftover materials of the border wall were auctioned off, but not because President Joe Biden wanted to sell them. In fact, it was because of a bill introduced by a Republican lawmaker in 2023, which was enacted as a law in December of that year. According to this legislation, a plan to use the materials was required to be submitted within 75 days. Otherwise, all of it should be auctioned off because it costs the Department of Defense a lot to store and maintain these materials. Because of this, some material was sold, but not all of it. Controversy stirred up after this, and people said that all of it had been sold to an auction company called GovPlanet. Thankfully, this was just a false rumor. But this wasn't all. A lot of people were against Biden's decision to stop the construction of the wall, and therefore they kept spreading rumors. In December 2024, it was said that Joe Biden was selling off an entire section of the border wall, just weeks before Donald Trump was set to take office. People said that this move was solely made to sabotage Donald Trump's project because they knew he would start the construction as soon as he took the oath. Daily Wire also covered this news story, showing a video of trucks hauling unused border wall material to auction off. There had to be an explanation for this, right? From the looks of it, it seemed clear that Joe Biden was doing this just to make things difficult for Trump. But later, it was said that the material being transported in the video was the same as required under the Republican legislation enacted in December 2023. Therefore, this was legal. However, the claims of Republicans and Donald Trump that the border wall material was being auctioned off were still true. It obviously created problems and delayed the construction. Perhaps this is the reason why full construction is set to resume in March 2025. Despite the controversies from previous years, the good news for border wall supporters is that President Donald Trump has taken the necessary steps to take control of the illegal alien issue. This gap near Friendship Park, a vital area notoriously used by smugglers and criminals, measures at least 100 feet. Construction workers started working on it as soon as the executive order was passed. Because of the executive order, the Border Patrol also worked closely with other authorities near the San Diego sector to seal off any entry points. According to a spokesperson for the CBP, there are various projects that have restarted after Donald Trump's inauguration as president. These projects include several of those that were halted. The date of completion is still undetermined. When this project was restarted, Americans, especially Donald Trump supporters, reminisced about the time when he announced the completion of the 450-mile stretch of the border wall during his 2017 to 2021 presidency. At the time, new walls were created, as well as old barriers being repaired and replaced. These steps were deemed essential back then, especially by Trump, because the asylum seekers were pouring in every year. Joe Biden, on the other hand, did not do a lot to help this cause. At least, that's what the Republicans say. Of course, this is not a political video, and no sides are being taken, but there are some undeniable facts. As soon as Biden took office, he signed an executive order pausing all construction of the wall. The funds allocated for the wall were to be used elsewhere, and all contracts with external construction companies were to be terminated. The next year, the Biden administration took a U-turn and announced that they would be adding barriers to 4 gaps in Arizona near the Yuma area. This particular stretch of land was notoriously known as one of the busiest corridors for illegal crossings. Over the years, Joe Biden and his administration continued to play this confusing game of halting and restarting the wall construction. For example, in 2023, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that President Biden didn't think the border wall was effective. This statement made it clear to Americans that the president wasn't interested in keeping the illegal aliens out of their country. On the other hand, in October 2023, Joe Biden restarted the wall construction himself, citing the surge of migrant crossings. At least 24 laws were also waived, including the Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act, and several others. This was done to expedite the construction process and significantly reduce the objections, injunctions, and lawsuits against the wall. This was also one of the few times Donald Trump actually praised Joe Biden because his vision and ideology were being implemented in the country. All of these confusing steps continuously delayed the project. At the same time, crime rates kept increasing, despite many news outlets and reporting websites saying that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes. Unsolved murders, robberies, gang wars, and much more filled the country with terror. The worst part about all of this was that nobody could identify the potential suspects. They have no documentation, no passport, and nothing of legal value. They're just unidentified human beings roaming the streets and living among American citizens, including women and children. Obviously, it sounds scary, and that's because it is. People don't know who they're sharing their city, town, or even their street with. Busy cities like New York City and the areas it contains, like Harlem, Manhattan, and the Bronx, reported a horrific increase in street crime. Therefore, a good majority of Americans supported Donald Trump's executive order to resume construction. However, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador harshly criticized the restarting of construction, stating that it was a step backward. But this wasn't anything new. Mexicans have always been against the wall, but the U.S. says that it's extremely necessary. This is because the number of illegal immigrants trying to enter the U.S. has only multiplied with time. In 2010, a report mentioned that 97% of the migrants came from the southwest border into the U.S. Over 460,000 people tried to enter the U.S. that year through illegal means. In 2019, this number doubled, and a record 977,509 people tried to enter the U.S. illegally. These numbers were reported by the Border Patrol, which is responsible for the apprehension of these individuals. Looking at these numbers, it seemed as if the only thing Donald Trump said to himself was, "No more." 1,500 troops were initially deployed in San Diego and El Paso immediately after the January 2025 executive order was passed. A massive crackdown began all across the wall, and active-duty military officers searched for any squatters, hidden people, and crossers. There are still various gaps, underground hidden tunnels, and several other ways created by smugglers to cross the massive wall. This is why the construction is considered extremely important. In December 2024, after Donald Trump was elected, the arrest numbers for illegal crossings at the southern border dropped significantly. Only 47,000 people were arrested during that month, whereas in the same month in 2023, this number went north of 250,000. Many praised Donald Trump for this, saying that he will be the president to put an end to this nightmare finally. However, he hadn't yet taken office at that time, so there was no way to be sure who deserved credit for this achievement. Just last month, the Associated Press joined the Border Patrol and stayed with them for 6 hours. No migrants were caught for the entire day until the last 30 minutes. 4 men, 3 of whom were Chinese and 1 Malaysian, were caught after they turned themselves into agents shortly after they crossed. The next arrests were of 8 Indians and 1 Nepalese man, all of whom crossed the border illegally. According to Karen Parker, a retired social worker out of California and a volunteer with the Border Kindness NGO, the number of migrants has decreased dramatically. In an interview, she said that she usually encountered at least 600 to 800 people in 2024 every night. Since she offered them medical support, she had a pretty good idea of the number of illegal immigrants entering the U.S. through the border. But now, as of January 2025, she said that the biggest group of people she encountered was just a group of 40. That too has become only an occasional sight now. In her words, ever since Donald Trump took office, it has been a dead standstill at the southern border. She also added that this might be because of the extreme weather of the wildfires that engulfed LA recently, but the Republicans mostly credit Donald Trump for this change. But the smuggling activities are still on the rise. More cars have been noted by social workers like Karen picking up people in the dark of the night. This is usually a pretty good indicator of smuggling or human trafficking. Many people are now resorting to this method to reach the U.S. because Donald Trump's executive order grants the use of force to stop these aliens. Before that, the Border Patrol officers would release them after handing over a notice to appear in immigration court. To prevent a court visit and almost certain deportation, most illegal migrants are now opting for direct smuggling and human trafficking routes. Obviously, it's only been a couple of weeks since the executive order was signed and passed, so expecting everything to become perfect just about now is unreasonable. The silver lining is that arrests in April 2024 at the San Diego border hovered around 1,400 per day. In January 2025, this number decreased to just 136. This shows that Donald Trump's methods, no matter how harsh, are effective. Joe Biden's actions, on the other hand, weren't as effective. The common talk right now is about President Donald Trump's straightforward and harsh approach toward this issue that demands immediate action. Most people are saying that this order will hinge to a large extent on how Trump will pay for the detention of the arrested people. Another huge issue is managing countries and making deals with those governments who do not wish to take their citizens back. These diplomatic challenges are hard to tackle because diplomatic relations are at stake. Countries like Venezuela and Nicaragua blatantly refuse to take back their citizens. Cuba is one of the few countries that does comply with deportation laws of the U.S., but in a very limited capacity. There are very few flights that go back and forth between Cuba and the U.S. The asylum seekers are in the millions, and fewer flights automatically means that they will get to stay in the U.S. for a longer period. Border Patrol agents are also getting annoyed by this, but they are also partly relieved. During Joe Biden's presidency, 192,000 immigrants were released by the Border Patrol. In December 2024, this number dropped to just 7,000. To make things interesting, El Paso only reported the release of 211 people in the third week of January 2025. This meant that Donald Trump's executive order had a massive impact, and the border crossings did come under control, at least to some extent. On this, Donald Trump said in his executive order, "To protect the security and safety of United States citizens, to protect each of the states against invasion, and to uphold my duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, it is my responsibility as president to ensure that the illegal entry of aliens into the United States via the southern border be immediately and entirely stopped." In every statement, he has made his intentions clear: no exceptions, no mercy, and no asylum. There's a zero-tolerance policy ongoing right now against the illegal migrants coming to the U.S. today. Border Patrol is active, troops are stationed, and through the executive order, the use of all necessary measures has been given the green light. According to Section 1 of the executive order, the Secretary of Defense, or the Secretary of each relevant military department, has been given complete freedom to order as many units or members of the armed forces, including the Ready Reserve and the National Guard, to take operational control of the southern border. This goes to show how serious of a problem this is, at least for President Donald Trump, who has always voiced his concerns against the migrants. On January 31, 2025, the construction of the U.S.-Mexico border wall officially began once again. Since it's a massive project spanning the entire 1,954 miles of the national border, it will take some time to complete. Meanwhile, other steps, as mentioned previously, have been taken to ensure that illegal migrants don't enter the country anymore. As for the ones who are already inside, things aren't looking too good for them either, but that's a discussion for another day. Right now, a good chunk of the American population is waiting for this project to be completed and for the illegal migrant problem to be dealt with once and for all. They've taken up luxury hotels like the Roosevelt, they're committing crimes, and they're disrupting the overall lifestyle and socio-economic norms of the American society. But that's just the opinion of Americans who are in support of the wall. There are still over 40% of people who believe the wall shouldn't be built. They have different views on this entire topic, and looking at things from their viewpoint, their arguments also make sense. After all, America is the land of opportunity, and if there are people coming in to make their lives better, what's the harm? The only counter to this argument is that if they want to come, why not come legally? Let me know what you guys think of this issue and which side you're on. Do you support Donald Trump's decision to restart the wall construction, or did Joe Biden put it rightly when he said that the wall just isn't effective? Surprisingly, this isn't the only mega project that hangs in the balance right now. A $192 billion project is also being constantly delayed, and if you're interested in learning more about that, check out this video next.